If a player cleans his ball during play of a hole, except on the putting green, he shall incur a penalty of 1 stroke. That's the rule, Jerry.
But it's just a friendly game. Why do you always have to be such a stickler?
Because that's the way I was raised.
Welcome to Spirit of the Game, brought to you by the Colorado Golf Association. Here are your hosts, Ed Mate and Lewis Harry.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Spirit of the Game, our monthly chat about all things golf and particularly looking at the game through the lens of the rules of golf. This is Ed Mate. I'm delighted this month to have another name blast from the past who's gone on, like so many of our fabulous alumni, to great, bigger and better things. So the one and only Marty Jertson is with us. So Marty, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Great. It's been a while since we've chatted, but I'm sure we'll talk about today. I have so many fond memories of playing CJ events and Colorado golf, you know.
That's awesome. So for those who don't know, Marty, and we'll get into this, has had quite an amazing career at Ping. And to kind of tease where I want to take the conversation is just talking about how Marty's world in developing the best technology to make the game enjoyable, and is just to give you a little free ad to play. Is it Ping's tagline still "Play Your Best" or is it?
Oh yeah, it's all always has been. Okay. That's still our motto.
I love it. So we'll get into that, but let's start much further back. How did you get introduced to the game? Where did you grow up? And then what brought you to Colorado? Let's start there.
Yeah, it's kind of all tied together, Ed. I grew up in a very small town, a couple hours east of Phoenix, which was a copper mining town. So my parents didn't work in the mines. They were kind of social workers. But it was a mining town. And, a lot of folks who lived in my little town had gone to the Colorado School of Mines, because one of the only mining schools is in the news lately, with all the, need for minerals and all this stuff. Like we need to ramp up mining in the U.S. So that's how I learned about the school. And just played a lot of golf learned the game from my dad. So he was lefty. He was a big Ben Hogan fan. He grew up being a caddy at Riviera Country Club in L.A., a little bit of time in the Bay Area where he shagged balls for Ken Venturi at, the Cow Club, in his very younger days. So he had a great affinity for some of the greats and had some touch points to some of the greats. And so I kind of copied his swing. He swung lefty, I swung righty. And that's what we did on every weekend. We'd go play golf as a family. And that kind of kept me out of trouble in my little small town. And that's how I learned about School of Mines and ultimately ended up moving up to Colorado.
So you're the opposite of Phil Mickelson. So supposedly he did the same thing. He feared his father's swing, and he was a righty, and hence Phil's a lefty.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, my whole family, now even my kids, my son is left-handed, but golf's righty. My dad was actually right-handed and golf lefty. So we're all, and I'm all, cattywampus in that regard, but yeah.
One thing you'll learn quickly, I have ADD, so I'll be jumping around a little bit, but I'm just curious to insert here. Is there a trend currently in golf where there's more lefties because we're in the middle of caddy training right now, and I'm always telling the caddies this is a right-handed game. Very few people play left-handed because we're trying to teach them which side of the ball to stand on, how to put the bag on the shoulder, all that good stuff, and everything is very much a right-handed game. Is that changing, or are you still seeing?
I don't know if we've seen like a macro level trend, but it's certainly that's actually a good point. I should run the numbers on tour to see that. There's obviously a lot of Canadian. None of the big Canadians are lefty. That kind of surprises me. Right now, you got a lot of great Canadian players. Obviously, since Mike Weir was probably the last great lefty player, but I'm Matt McCarty, local, who's playing great, lefty player. He did good at the Masters. I'm very intrigued by Augusta National in the advantage for left-handed players. I heard there's a mirrored version somewhere in Texas where every hole's the opposite. I really want to go play that.
That's interesting. So let's pick it up again at mine. So you played golf there. Was Tyler the coach then?
Not yet, not yet. We had a couple coaches, Bob Ritz, who was an alumni from the School of Mines, played on the football team a long time ago, kind of helped out the team and coached us. And then Tyler came in after I was gone when Jimmy Hardkay played there, and Corey Bacon, who works for me, who I hired and had as an intern, who is now one of our great designers and best minds here at Ping in the R&D space. It was a very fun time.
And you won it was our stroke play, right? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah. And what year?
That was in 2001. So that was between my junior and senior year.
Yeah.
And so my first year at Mines, I in the summer, I decided to move back to Phoenix, and that was a bad idea. It was so hot.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was missing with all the great tournaments up there. Yeah. So between my sophomore and junior year, and then junior and senior, I stayed up in Colorado. I caddied at Castle Pines. Whenever I needed some money, I go down there and caddy a little bit. And I was a valet, so I had these very flexible jobs, so I could play the full schedule of CGA events, which I absolutely love. So that was 2001 at Saddle Rock. And I remember us playing tough. The greens got firm and it was kind of baked. And, I don't know, I only shot like a handful under par or something like that. But yeah, that was a fantastic memory.
So when you graduated, did you have aspirations to play professionally? And what did the first few years out of school look like for you?
It was really that summer of 2001 when I kind of gave myself permission to maybe play professionally. Until then, I had no aspirations. I was like, I'm going to go work a classic School of Mines oil and gas job or something, right? But that summer when I won the stroke play, I qualified for the U.S. Pub Links that was down in San Antonio. And I just and then that fall season in school, I won a ton of tournaments. I won like 5 tournaments in the fall. Wow. I got on a run. So it was, and I think I did good in the Colorado Open that year, up at Sunenalp, I think. And so I had a lot of positive golf experiences. I played on the Pacific Coast, Pac Coast AM at Forest Highlands, which now I'm fortunate enough to, I just joined there last year. So I'm like, okay, the circle of life here is kind of now completed.
Is Matt Bailey still there?
He is still there. Yes, absolutely.
He was at our Pinehurst here in Denver for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of that summer fall was the time I was like, okay, maybe when I graduate, I will try to go play. And that's what I did. So 2002 for about 1 year. And then I played good on the May tours, Ed, but man, I think I was wiser than a bunch of my friends that did the same thing. And I quit fast. I quit after 1 year and got into the working world.
So how did you get at Ping? You were at a degree in, what was your degree in? What type of engineering?
Yeah, mechanical engineering. So it's just a good all-purpose, problem-solving degree. It's probably the best degree for if you're going to do what I have done, design clubs and things of that nature. So I got in through a friend of a friend, so a friend I had met, and played golf with in the Colorado Open, up at both Saddle Rock and then Sunenalp the next year. I remember we were on the range at Sunenalp, and he was like, well, do you want to go work an office job, or this could be your office? And we're on, beautiful looking over Vail and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I'm going to try that for a while. But he grew up with one of the other engineers at Ping. And so when I decided, hey, I might want to think about getting a job here and getting out of debt a little bit, he got me in the door at Ping, and I just kind of worked my way up from, kind of almost an intern level role, helping manufacturing, and then shadowing in the design world and kind of being a mentee of an apprentice. Did a little apprenticeship, worked my way up, and started doing bigger projects. And so
what is your current title and responsibilities? First of all, how long have you been at Ping, and what is your current title and responsibilities?
I've been at Ping now for 22 years. So
Wow.
I am now the vice president of fitting and performance, and that's a role I've had for about 5 or 6 years, where I cover all of our club fitting tools, technology, education, software, hardware, anything and everything to do to help Ping regain, which I'm pretty confident we've done, our lead on the custom fitting side. So that's the last like 5 or years or so. And then for about 5 or 8 years, I was the chief engineer, so the head of all of our product development. And that was a lot of fun. So kind of worked my way up from designer, kind of intern manufacturing to designer, senior designer. Then I took over all product development for about 5 to 7 years, and now moved my way into being in charge of all of our custom fitting tools and technology.
Yeah, that's really neat that you've had a chance to kind of reinvent yourself and stay fresh. You've been with the company for that long. That's really cool.
It was really fun. I think in no way was I burnt out from product design. I loved it. It was a lot of time doing like CAD work and kind of deep work like that. I'm almost like a programming. It's kind of like doing programming, but in a different domain, different tool set, and different kind of mental space. But I've really enjoyed the kind of open-endedness and the challenge. My boss, John K. Solheim, our president and CEO, he said, "Hey, Marty, just go get us the lead again in custom fitting." And he left it very open-ended. And so I could go, it's kind of very entrepreneurial. And that's what I love about Ping.
Yeah.
Even though we're one of the big 3 or 4 golf companies, you come in the door every day and it still feels a little like a startup. And so that helped me. I'm just very excited to be able to define the problem, then go solve the problem. And I have a great, awesome, lean team. And we're just building a lot of fun things.
Well, that you kind of touched on it there. One of the questions I'd pose to you to kind of get your brain thinking about this conversation. What is still apparent in the original vision of Karsten Solheim today when you walk in through the door? And you may have just answered it, but what is it about Ping that was true then and it's still true today?
I think the tagline we started with, play your best, it's like literally in the ethos of like what we're here to do. And so since we are a private family-owned company, we don't have to kind of succumb to the pressures of a public company and earnings and hitting these certain metrics and things of that nature. So, in my 22 years here, there's been different companies, launching products super quick. And it's like, oh, you kind of get this FOMO as a brand, like, oh, I need to do that or I'll be missing out. You got to start launching drivers every 6 months. We just stayed the course. Like, hey, let's do the best thing for the golfer. Let's make sure we put in real performance benefit into our product designs. And so you can kind of be a little immune to the trends and think very much about the macro and make really good, kind of ethical and moral decisions about the business. That's what I love, is that we're engineering first. So Karsten was an engineer. So the engineering leads and the marketing follows. It's very different than, let's say, Nike Golf when they were around. The marketing led and the engineering followed. We're kind of the exact opposite. And that's still in the DNA in the fabric of the company and how we operate today.
What do you think are the biggest leaps forward in your tenure at Ping in terms of technology? People point to the Pro V1 as being, a watershed moment. On your side, you guys don't make golf balls. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Do you make golf balls?
We fit them. So I actually work on and led the development of a golf ball fitting service called Ballnamic, www.ballfitting.com. So we test them and we characterize them, but we kind of have no skin in the game. So we do it without any bias, and we make recommendations. That's really going
to be interesting when we start talking about the rollback. Then it sounds like a little bit of insight there.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of work on that, but I think in terms of the biggest thing in my time is the advent of centrifugally cast titanium. And what that means is that we can make driver, like the wall thickness. So if you cut a driver open, you can make the walls very, very thin. And that has helped power a lot of what we've been able to do with driver designs, is being able to make the walls very, very thin, because the manufacturing. So it's just unlocked a lot of design capabilities of being to push the envelope. Now we're seeing more multi-material, like there's been a lot of innovation in the composite side. But if I had to pick one thing, it's centrifugally cast titanium. What that means is like Karsten brought traditional investment casting or sand casting to the golf industry, right? And this allowed you, before that, the way to think about this, Ed, is like a forging. You could only, it's like designing golf clubs in 2D, right? It's like just a 2D thing. Boom, two directions, there's your forging. Once Karsten brought casting in, now you could do 3D. You could have more perimeter weighting, basically, like more topography in your designs. And centrifugal casting is sucking all the air out and spinning the parts while you pour the molten metal in, and therefore you get all the impurities and the bubbles out, and you can go really thin on the walls. Really fun, amazing technology.
You can be thin and structurally sound at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's funny when I think of Ping, I think, probably just because I'm old, and I think, but you made a comment earlier about regain that leadership position in fitting, because I think about the dots and the dot colors and the lie angles and the things that when I was playing junior golf was like new.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're still trying. I think my what I view my role is like to stay committed to our heritage and our legacy. Like we still have the color code system and the dots. It's not different. We don't put it in the middle of the I-2 big like we used to. I still love the look of that. You go into retail and you see that, but we still have it. But how do we do that? How do we build on that in the contemporary world when consumers all have a launch monitor at their house basically nowadays, right?
So let's get into, and I won't call it the controversial side of it because I don't want to be, that's not my style. But if you had to finish this sentence, Ping's relationship with the USGA is blank. What word would you use?
Oh man, that's one word is a tricky one. Yeah, that's a tricky one, Ed.
I didn't prepare you for this. I kind of gave you a broader question. What is your relationship with the USGA?
Storied.
Storied. Okay. Yeah. No, that's for sure. I didn't. Yeah.
It's very complex because of the lawsuit and the groove stuff. Back in the 80s. Yeah. And so that was before my time. Right. But there's a lot that happened around that kind of established. Nowadays, we're just in a very healthy relationship back and forth. But that's why I was like, oh, it's complicated because of the 60 years. When
I asked the question, I didn't realize just how loaded it was. I really had forgotten about all the groove controversy and all that. I was really thinking in today's context of the rollback, all the noise around the war between the governing body, the equipment manufacturers. And I'm really asking you, really not just from a Ping perspective, but from your industry and your colleagues at TaylorMade and Titleist, how would you characterize? Because in the media, there's a sense that it's really contentious. Yeah. And do you feel like that is being in the seat that you're in? Do you feel like it is contentious?
It's an interesting time, Ed, because especially for us, we talked about the golf ball testing. We have unbelievable, arguably maybe even the best kind of predictive capabilities of understanding what the golf ball is going to do. But since we don't make balls, we are trying to figure out, okay, how do we test them? Or we know that some of the others are already testing balls that are, conforming to the new rules. So interesting time in that regard in terms of like preparedness, right? So and I think the biggest challenge is kind of the uncertainty around what's going to happen, how much certainty there is into, what's going to happen, exactly when and how it's going to be rolled out. We will be extremely ready no matter what. I will say that. But it is a very interesting time in terms of technology readiness, rollout and the timing of when that happens on the major tours versus for the amateur golfers, things of that nature. So there's a lot of activity going on in the R&D space, because if the golf ball changes, you have to change like club specifications. Like if the ball does indeed change, the optimal launch conditions for somebody's driver and the lofts they might need and the CG locations on their irons and things of that nature will definitely have to change along with it. Right. Yeah. So we need to be super prepared no matter what.
So do you think, again, not that it's a binary, simple black and white question, do you support, and I'm asking you to try to answer this, even though it's probably impossible, from just a steward of the game. Put yourself in the USGA's position. Your responsibility is to be a steward of the game, to be an objective protector of the game. The USGA's position is that we have to put a governor on this. It's just gotten out of hand. And you really have two camps of people. The distance the ball travels is a problem, and the other camp says it's not a problem. What is your view of that? And do you have sympathy, or do you agree with the USGA that something at some point needs to be done? And then beyond that, do you think this is the right way forward?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. So my personal opinion is, let's say, I don't know, we're having this call of the week. The tour players are playing Philly Cricket Club, right? I love that place, fantastic course, but it's all in the media. Hey, it's going to be too short. The guys are going to shoot a zillion under. The very simple solution, which I know was indeed proposed during the proposal period, is just have a different ball for some courses. I think that would be amazing, right? You have a different golf ball, a tour ball, right? That goes proportionally shorter for those players. This would be much like tennis. Some players are better on clay versus grass, right? You have different strengths and weaknesses. If you had a different ball for some tournaments, certain players that are better in the wind, controlling the trajectory in the wind. This is an area of the golf ball change that nobody is talking about, that I will try to shine some light on, is if you change the ball, aerodynamic properties changes, folks' dispersion is going to go up. And so that's a cost or a tax on the 99.9% of golfers out there that's going to hit them, that they're not prepared for or ready for, that nobody's talking about, is they're going to hit the ball more crooked when this ball, if and when this ball change happens for the amateur golfer. So no, I'm personally not a fan of making a change for the, for the top players, and I don't think it's going to have the intended effect that might be behind the inspiration of it, which is everyone's hitting it too far. Let's kind of cap it. Because what will happen is golf will self-select. The mega athletes will then rise to the top to then hit the ball back in the places that they already are or further. And the example of this is that there's tons of athletes, and you're already seeing them, the Brysons, the Cameron Champs of the world, that can hit the ball with over 200 miles an hour of ball speed when they want to. Those golfers will now be the ones, all the players who already hit it kind of short, the Colin Morikawas of the world, they'll be gone. They will no longer have a chance to compete if this ball change happens, because they will be penalized in a way that then will incent the faster ball speed players to hit the ball where they already are today. Right. So, if you do it, it'll probably require another rollback after that. And then the athletes will become bigger, faster, stronger. The long driving type of players will be the only way to get to the PGA Tour, and the elite players will be that. I like the opposite. Where you can have a Colin Morikawa out there in a Brian Harmon winning majors and competing. I want to see those players, right? I think that's what, the David versus Goliath is what people love about golf. And this is a step that will make that very, very hard to do.
So what do you do then? Because I don't think anybody, I think that is, what you're saying is it's almost paradoxically, ironically, the idea is to make it a game other than just raw power and length. But you're saying that the approach they're taking is going to do the opposite. It's going to put an even higher premium. And I can see that.
100%.
I can definitely see that the old law of unintended consequence takes you down a path you didn't realize. Life is full of examples of that. So
yes,
in the interest of not poking holes, but trying to be problem solvers, you made a career of solving problems. How do you keep the game then relevant? Because you could argue that's already happening. I mean, it's already the table stakes of golf today have made it more and more difficult for the Brian Harmons and the Colin Morikawas, but you're saying they are able to compete today. So how do you keep them in the game? And if you do, other than just say don't change anything, and maybe that
and that is an option. Like golf is booming. Don't change anything. I mean, I mean, there's the human nature is we always want to like find a problem and solve it, But is anything really wrong? Is the question. I mean, I love watching golf, and the athletes that are out there and having the longer hitters compete against the shorter hitters. I like that. What I think might happen, is like golf turns in more to the NBA where like everyone's shooting threes. You know what I mean? How can you still keep the David in the ballpark? I think would be a fun way to look at it from the tour level, like tour competitive golfer level. So I like the idea of just having like a tournament ball, or maybe having this is very first principles thinking, very theoretical, but you go to a certain golf course, and you have a golfer could still pick from 3 to 5 balls or something for that particular course. But the golf ball went a little bit shorter, right? I think that would be a very simple way to do it. And I understand that was kind of sort of proposed, and it kind of gets into the bifurcation type of world, right, where then there's the logic that hey OEMs, you were offered that, but you chose not to do that because they're you want the tour player and the consumer playing the same equipment type of thing, and then being mindful of clubs versus balls, and what do you do for each of those, and how do you balance that?
So going back to the B word of bifurcation, and I've always, as somebody who studied the rules for a long, long time, mm-hmm. I've always, I wouldn't say always, but I long ago pushed back against this sort of fundamental skull and crossbones attitude toward bifurcation, that somehow was the end of golf as we knew it. And I challenged that a long time ago. I'm not saying I'm smarter than anybody, saying, wait a minute, we have bifurcated so many ways way before now. The moment you pick a tee, you're bifurcating. I'm not playing.
That's a good point.
So why are we making such a big deal? And I was very pleased to see the USGA, and you may recall Thomas Pagel, who's now the Chief Governance Officer for the USGA, like you, a Colorado guy, grew up here, was one of our first boat ride interns. And I was pleased because I had him on this same podcast, and I asked him about this. I said, why I got an interesting response. They have softened around that. And this was this interview was before the rollback announcement. And I thought, good, we finally are going. And then paradoxically, again, I thought, no, wait a minute. It wasn't really a paradox. And then all of a sudden, the organizations came out of the woodwork who have advocated for bifurcation, not to names, the PGA of America, in the spirit of, the long putter. We should bifurcate. We should allow the long putter for the less skilled player. And now all of a sudden they're completely against bifurcation. It's like, what are you talking about? And to me, that was the right direction.
Yeah.
Let's govern, or let's address the problem. The distance the ball's traveling for 99.9% of golfers is not a problem. And by the way, no women. So let's just take them out. This is a male-only elite male-only issue. So let's shine the light on the problem and not just punish everyone. And then here we are, right back in. And it's funny because now the USGA is like, good. We prefer that anyway. It's almost like they intended it that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like the condition of competition rules, like the 46-inch driver thing. I mean, that's great. Like PGA Tour event, you play that, but If you want to play a 48-inch driver in your club championship and your course wants to, go for it. I'm a fan of that. And I think it could have been executed in that way. And the way that the golf ball is going to have to go shorter is either through slowing the ball speed or making the aerodynamic, like giving it more drag aerodynamically, and probably some mix of both. And different ball companies are going to choose a different mix of both. That'll be part of their decision calculus when this goes forward. But the addition of more drag is going to make the ball go more offline. And it's going to make the golf ball harder to play when it's windy, and that will affect 100% of golfers. So now dispersions are going to grow, and the game's going to get harder from the wind blowing your ball more, affecting it more, and your dispersion being wider. So it's very easy to look at, rationalize, for the average golfer, it's only going to hurt them 3 to 5 yards on a driver and yada, yada, yada. But nobody's talking about the increase in dispersion that's going to slow down play, make it harder. It's just, why put that tax? It's a tax that's going to be applied to every golfer out there.
Well, that really, I've learned over the years, as a, decent, but not certainly far from professional, elite player, it's all about distance control, and it's all about shot dispersion for sure. And obviously you have to have centerness of contact to achieve that. But it's like golf in Colorado versus golf at San Francisco or golf in Houston.
Yeah.
The drag of the golf. And that's why, and I'm kind of given up on it, the Colorado Rockies ever being competitive. A, because I'm pessimistic, and B, golf and baseball doesn't perform the same at altitude. And these pitchers go to sea level, there's drag on the ball breaks, it moves, come back up here, it doesn't. And so what you're saying definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, Ed, I've run a bunch of numbers on this and did a bunch of stuff when I come play in the Colorado Open. So if you hit and this is very interesting to me. I don't know if the golf course architects know this or not. Maybe they do. I don't know. But if you hit a drive that's going to have, say 20 yards of slice on it at sea level, so you kind of pull it, curves 20 yards to the right, you hit that same drive in Denver and it only curves 10 yards, right? So this is why you can hit it much, much straighter, and it can be much more accurate in mountain golf. The ball goes straighter. This is why I've always was on these tee boxes in Colorado, or I'll go back up there. I'm like, man, that's a pretty tight fairway, but I still can hit them. It's like the ball's going further, but I'm still hitting it straight. You're actually hitting it straighter. So it's looking at performance not only from just pure distance. That's a 2D way to look at it. You also need to look at the dispersion impact. Exactly. And so the opposite's going to happen for everybody. The opposite will happen for everybody if the ball rollback happens, which is it's going to go more crooked, right? It's going to be more like you're hitting the ball at sea level where the wind's going to blow it more. It's going to go more crooked. That's a non-trivial tax on everybody.
It's funny. It's almost like I got bad news and worse news. The bad news is you're short and off further, you're shorter. At least before you were short and in the fairway. Now you're short and in the rough.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating for sure. No, I've thought about this a lot. Being a born and raised Colorado native, advocating for our homegrown talent to stay in Colorado, and I'm almost of the mind, and to give some love to one of your players, Jennifer Kupcho.
Yeah.
I asked Jennifer, what would your advice be to a up and coming talented high school player? Stay in Colorado or leave? And she said, you got to leave. She said, you can't play. And she said, it's just as hard to go from altitude to from sea level back to altitude as it is the other way, because you got to adjust everything and everything you just described. So you're constantly betwixt and between, just like pitchers at Coors Field who get rocked when they go to sea level, and then they got to come back up here, and maybe they're and believe me, I've learned enough about baseball to know that they study aerodynamics pretty closely there.
Yeah, absolutely. We made Jim Hard K. We made him these we have an app for this here at Ping that we made using our ball dynamic technology and simulation technology that gives them super precise conversion. And I was kind of like, hey, Jim, what do you want your home base to be? Do you want it to be sea level or do you want it to be Denver? And he was like, well, actually, because most of the tour events are at sea level, unless you go play the WGC in Mexico or, the playoff event or, when the tour goes to Cherry Hills occasionally, or maybe Tahoe would be one, but he said, hey, sea level, and then I'll use the card when I go play in Colorado. So he kind of changed his home base even, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So this morning, and I didn't do this, although to prepare for today, I was watching Golf Channel, and I'm watching actually it was on YouTube. I was watching a Shell's Wonderful World of Golf, and it was one that it was a reprisal of one, and it was Nicklaus and Snead at Pebble Beach in the 60s. I think it was 1963. And fascinating. It was really fun to watch. I don't know how often you do that, and you look back and you say, is this still the same game? And unfortunately, they didn't show them playing 14, the par 5 where Rory hit it with a drive in the 7-iron.
Yeah.
And again, I think we look at that one-off and we it's human nature. We sort of say that's everybody. It's not. That's the most elite driver of the golf ball in the world.
Yes.
But nevertheless, is it still golf? Is it still the same game? Here's Nicklaus hitting 1-iron repeatedly. That's just a hunk of iron with a certain loft on it, right? We get fixated on the fact that it has a number 1 engraved in it, but I really do believe it's the same game. As much as I can easily romanticize about back in the days of yore when the club head was smaller and was made of wood, the reality is their golf swings look very similar. Yes, Snead was hitting a lot of 9-irons around putting greens. The greens were incredibly slow and soft.
Oh, so slow.
Yeah. So that's different. And I would say, if anything looks the most striking difference is probably not the way they were playing, but the conditions of the ground on which they were playing.
Yeah, the green speed.
Lack of manicure. I mean, it looked like a muni. I mean, I know it is a muni technically, or it's public, but it looked like a goat track in between the tees and the greens.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just sort of using that. Where do you think golf is headed? Is this still the same game you grew up playing 25 years ago or more, 30 years ago? What are your thoughts on that as you look in your crystal ball?
Yeah. No, I think the technological advancement at the right rate is actually like kind of part of the game. You know what I mean? Like let's say, and part of folks' journey through golf, and now I'm 44. I'm like getting over I'm starting to lose some speed, do some stuff to try to gain some distance. Is that technology kind of keeps you where you were in your prime, right? And because people play golf from when they're young to age whatever, 80s and 90s and what have you, and you're on this speed and distance decline, technology can kind of keep you in there. And keep you going, keep your distance up, have you still hit, you play one of our new irons that has more distance in it, you can still hit an 8-iron from the same spot for the next decade. And if technological advancement didn't happen, you'd be having to hit a 6 or 7-iron. So I actually think another perspective is that like technology is actually part of the game, right? At the right rate. Right. So and that's why I think maybe a different perspective that the governance could take is like, let's let them have a little bit here and there to keep golfers in the game longer. Right. This is kind of a different way to look at it. So a lot of my memories of growing up playing golf are like getting the new club, like going from a wood to a metal wood, going from, when the Pro V1 happened, when this happened, when grooves got better, and remembering that, I could spin it a lot around the greens, but still hit that ball far. And so I think that's another perspective and another view of it. And to kind of view the game a little bit as transient, but kind of staying core to the fundamental principles of it. I think you're absolutely right on, I think it's great. I love watching Shell's Wonderful World of Golf. I think the green speeds is the biggest difference people notice.
Yeah.
Like you hit the putt, takes off fast, and it's like, it comes be like putting on a fairway, or even longer. That's a whole nother skill, man, that how fast the greens are nowadays and in the majors and things of that nature. I mean, that nobody talks about that. They talk about, hey, golfers hit it further. They have all this great equipment. Nobody talks about how much tougher the greens are, to putt, more challenging and control your chips and trajectories than it was back then. It's gotten much, much harder in that regard, right? Especially you watch Pebble and things of that nature.
Yeah, when I grew up in the game, I started playing in the 70s and started working as a caddy in the early 80s. And I worked in the bag room at Denver Country Club from the early 80s to the mid 80s. And I swear you could count on one hand over that 5-year period the number of times I saw a new piece of equipment going to somebody's bag. They had they had a lot of pings, a lot of ping eye twos, ping eyes. They also had a lot of Kenny Smiths. The driver, the woods of choice were either McGregor Iomatics or the Power Belts. And they didn't change. I mean, I cleaned the same old clubs for Dr. Smith forever. And he didn't, he was almost like your violin. You just didn't change it. And then, of course, now it's amazing to see. And if the cynics would say it's just the you guys just marketing the heck out of this stuff and convincing us we need new equipment, just because you're good at selling us stuff. But there's no doubt that that's changed a lot. And I agree with you. It's made the game a lot more enjoyable, certainly allowed people to play their best in a lot of ways. And but again, where I sit, and just to kind of put a bow on this part of the conversation, as a state association staff member, there's this sort of mood in the room that it's us against the world, or it's us against, and we've got to protect the game. And if we don't do something, and if you hear Mike Wan talk, he's a pretty convincing guy and a pretty passionate guy. He makes it sound like this is an existential thing. And if we don't do something, he talks about the inputs of water and fertilizers, and the ballparks have to keep getting bigger, and we've got to do something. That's why I was really looking forward to talking to you to hear your perspective.
Yeah,
I'll give you the final word on that piece of the conversation.
Yeah, it's just the what do you do for the 0.1% problem versus the 99.9%, and there's protect the game or grow the game or foster the game. It's like what is the ultimate mission, and and is there really a problem? I get the whole water side and things of that nature, but again, I think that's very much for I go to the the Tee It Forward campaign a little bit, Ed, and it was like, okay, USJ put out this guidance to Tee It Forward, and most golf courses, this is one of the big problems with the rollout, they didn't have tees where the recommendations were. Right. So it's like, okay, what are you going to go do? Build a bunch of tee boxes and all the cost and all that stuff with putting more tees in. So we've tried that. We tried teeing it forward. Now we're doing the kind of the opposite approach, I guess. You're going to kind of have people virtually go backwards a little bit if you switch the golf ball.
Well, I think that's definitely that's kind of common sense tells you, why are you solving a problem for 100% of the people when 0.1% really have, if there is a problem at all, some will say there's not even a problem there.
Yeah.
Why are you imposing it on everybody? All I know is I played the Innisbrook several years ago, and I played from a tee that was 6,500 yards in Tampa, and I'm a 2 handicap, and I got my ass kicked. And I was hitting as much as I had into par fours, and I'm like, it's just amazing how it's and I represent easily the top 10% of golfers as a 2 handicap, or probably top 5%, and just got crushed playing a 6,500 yard golf course. Let me tell you, we don't need longer golf courses. We need forward tees. I think you're right.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually kind of fun to watch. I don't know, Bryson go play the 4 trees and try to break 50 or whatever. Right. I mean, it's kind of these things are very fun. These things are very very fun. For the more forward tee boxes, I do it occasionally. It's a lot of fun. It's the it's a way for you to experience the opposite of what the tour players do, you know.
So as we look at it, eye on the time, try to wrap this up. You're still playing some pretty good golf. I see your name pop up periodically in a qualifier. Seeing your name perhaps in a PGA Championship. Where does competitive golf? Where does competitive golf fit into your life today?
Oh man, Ed, I've been so close the last couple of years. Yeah, so I'm a PGA member. I got my Class A age 30, so about 14 years ago now. And yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've qualified for 5 PGA championships. So a lot of fun. I mean, my first few I got in and missed the cut by a decent amount. And I was like, man, I need to hit the ball longer. And so I did some stuff, try to get a little more power to my game.
Wait a minute. I'm going to insert here. Most people, when you say that get more power, they go to the gym. You went to the drafting table.
Yes. So I did a little of both. I started going to the gym and I co-founded a speed training company that we got like 60,000 people doing. Matt Fitzpatrick, when he won the U.S. Open a couple years ago, gave us all kinds of credit. So it's the Stack system, and it's kind of like a personal trainer for gaining club head speed. So it's like hardware, software combination, tells you exactly what to do. Works on the principle of overload and overspeed. So this is like big in track and field and baseball. Pitchers throwing balls that are a little heavier, a little lighter than their normal. So you apply bigger forces and faster, lower forces, but move faster. So we took that principle into golf. My co-founder, Sasha McKenzie, coaches all kinds of the tour players on how to gain club head speed. And the top coaches, Chris Como, Mark Blackburn, et cetera. So we made a product out of it, but I used it myself personally to gain a bunch of speed between 2018, 2019. And I made the cut. I played really good the first couple of days at Bethpage Black. And it was all because I could finally drive the ball further, mid 170s to high 170s ball speed on the course. I could hit the ball higher, and I could kind of, for a golf course like that, driving such a premium, high long iron, such a premium, I could finally hang. So I played 5 PGAs I played the U.S. Open, the COVID U.S. Open 2020 at Wingfoot, tons of fun. The one that Bryson won. And still playing competitively in my section, winning a bunch of section stuff, things of that nature. Almost won the Arizona Open last year. Still hanging a little bit, still hanging.
That's awesome. So what would your advice be? This is a selfish question and my final question, because I'm playing actually in my one and only tournament next week, the senior football that I play with Kent Moore, and I just enjoy it because it's great camaraderie. And so what would be your advice be to somebody who actually is motivated, who's in their 50s, who doesn't want to go to the gym and, realistically but just wants to do a couple simple things to increase club head speed? What would be those couple things?
Jeez, man. I mean, you want a couple. One, I would get the stack. It's 20 to 30 minutes 2 times a week. So it's our goal with the stack is to get you the highest probability to gain speed, or if you're 50 or over, Ed, if you maintain speed, you're actually gaining because everyone's declining. So but normally what we see is folks will gain a little and then you do it. It's kind of like brushing your teeth and maintain your speed. So get on the stack, do some overload, overspeed training a couple times a week. It's not a big time investment. That's the big thing. It's very safe. You don't hit a ball. So as long as you're, in good enough shape to play golf, practice a couple times a week, it's great. Super safe, overspeed training. And then the second thing.
So where do you find the stack? Where do you find the stack system?
Best place to get is on our website, thestacksystem.com. And or Google it.
What's the investment?
So the stack comes with the hardware, which is a training club with like 5 precision weights. And then you need a little radar. And that was going to be my second recommendation. We sell like a bundle. So it comes with a tiny little yellow radar that Bluetooth data right to our app. And so it's $499. It comes with both. And the app has all kinds of stuff, speed training. We got a wedge practice mode. We even have a putting mode. So you get like 3 apps in one with our app. And you get it right off our website, Ed, and thestacksystem.com. So one piece of advice is kind of do the stack, do a 6-week program. And the second piece, Ed, which you'll get if you get our product solution and the bundle, is to have a little radar that you measure your ball speed. Because that feedback is super important. And that's what a lot of the tour players do. Whenever you see the tour players carrying their quad out on the golf course, the 99% of what they're looking at is their ball speed, making sure on the course, they're swinging with the intent they want. And just from having that feedback, you will be like, okay, what did I do there to swing a little faster?
Well, that really makes sense, because so many times speed is counterintuitive. You swing smooth, you're actually, I actually didn't try to swing out of my shoes, and look what
100%. So in doing our speed training, you're actually doing this little self-exploration. Should I swing smooth? And then what really might happen is your hand path gets longer, like Freddie Couples. And then the fact that you have a longer hand path means you can apply force to the handle longer. And because a longer period of time, you get more speed. So for you, your feel might actually be smoother. But if your radar says a faster number, you kind of get that feedback. Yeah. So that's part of the beauty of either the stack and or having like a little radar. And we sell this little radar at $289. And that's pretty much what everyone's looking at with their quad on the golf course. Yeah. You can get it for under $300. So have a little radar, track your speeds.
When you see your sales go through the roof, it's all because of the last 5 minutes of this chat. You're going to go,
it's going to go booming. We're going to get tons of orders in Colorado.
That spirit of the game must be unbelievable.
We're going to test it. We're going to see how much the viewership is here. No, but
that's right.
But it's fun. I've loved it, being able to try to help golfers. And that idea was born out of a Ping think tank. But I just love in my career just being able to help golfers in any number of different ways. And I kind of have this philosophy where I view my role in the industry is to take what tour players have access to and make them available to the everyday golfer. And that's what the stack is. It's kind of like bespoke training from Sasho, but now anyone and everyone can have access to it.
That's awesome. Well, Marty, listen, I'd love to keep the conversation, but you got to you probably got to go hit some balls and get ready for.
We got to.
What happened with the PGA qualifying this year? Are you playing?
My game was so close, man. I got to a great start. I was in. I had the third lowest round on the hard course, and I had the last tee time, and I finished in the dark, and the greens were firm, and it was windy and all the stuff, and I played great. Then next morning on the easier of the 2 courses, I kind of had fumbled a little bit, barely made the cut, and then I missed the second cut, and so. But my game was very, very close. I could have just as easily been that would have been for Quail Hollow right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I always when I see the name pop up, it always puts a smile on my face. And just like this chat has put a smile on my face. A lot of fun chatting with you. Unlike the USG, I still love you. But I really appreciate your candor and fun conversation.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for having me.